In our presentation, Richard, Aiden, and I are going to be introducing the policies which have led to China's massive economic growth and also discuss some of the effects of this change with a specific focus on the environment. In 1978, Deng Xiaoping launched a revolution that involved reforming China's economic system by setting market-oriented policies and opening up the country to foreign investment. This was needed especially after considering the negative effects of the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution during Mao's era. Deng first introduced the household responsibility system, which divided communes and allowed them to be converted into private plots. Through this policy, people were able to control their land as long as they sold a contracted portion of their crops to the government. These were called Township and Village Enterprises, or TVEs. Deng also stimulated production through state-owned enterprises, also known as SOEs. Firms were now allowed to sell any production above the quota, which hugely incentivized productivity and also avoided the shortages the country faced during Mao's era. Individuals were now given the opportunity to manage the company by contract, which also encouraged privatization. In December 1978, Deng announced the Open Door policy, which encouraged foreign investors to set up their companies in China. He also realized that foreign technology, knowledge, and expertise could be keys to furthering the country. To supplement this decision, the government created multiple special economic zones, which encouraged foreign investment through relatively open regulations and little interventions. One of the main positive impacts of these policies was the rise in per capita GDP and subsequent socioeconomic mobility. People were not only able to escape extreme poverty, but also spend more. The retail industry grew as a result, which also benefited the economy. Citizens now had access to appliances that were used only in a few developed countries, like TVs, refrigerators, and washing machines. The success of Chinese manufacturing hubs was a result of Deng's embrace of globalization. Exports went from a small share of China's economy in the 1970s to more than one-third of GDP in the mid-2000s. In addition, China had surpassed many of the world's leaders in terms of industrialization, turning it into a global power. There were also significant negative consequences. For example, the reform policies focused more on the coastal regions and neglected the inland. This has stalled the development in rural areas and has contributed to financial inequality in China. In addition, the concentrated economic zones and subsequent wealth favored the bureaucracy. Government officials were given valuable assets and land. These politicians were more than willing to keep the money to themselves with no one really to question their authority. Bribery was also on the rise. The firms who paid had better access to resources and were more likely to succeed. This led to significant political unrest within the public. The tensions had risen substantially and finally boiled over into the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989. To end these protests, the government enacted martial law which killed thousands of civilians. This remains as a black mark in modern China's history and on Deng's legacy as a leader. Another negative consequence of industrialization and rapid economic growth is the rise of pollution. Major cities and manufacturing towns' air pollution is risking public health. It has become so widespread that neighboring countries like Japan and Korea are also suffering from the effects. Industrial waste is also ruining landscapes, another shortcoming of high manufacturing outputs. But recently, the Chinese government is taking steps to deal with this issue. This will be expanded upon further in the following videos by Richard and Aiden.